Now, A&E takes you through an upside-down world where chicanery overpowers truth. And there's a sucker born every minute. A world of scams, schemes, and scoundrels. Uncover the folks behind the hoax scams. To the sharks and marks, flams and shams, schemes. And feel for yourself the stings and arrows of outrageous chutzpah. Scoundrels. The world's greatest con men. How do they spin the perfect scam? Whether it's selling the Eiffel Tower for scrap, duping the public with magical mystery cures, or peddling a line of master forgeries, discover the secrets of history's most brilliant deceptions.
How does the scam artist do it?
Professional skeptic and debunker James Randi reveals the ingenious tricksters who prey on our egos and blow our minds.
In this special presentation, we'll look at the inner workings of some of history's most outrageous scams and the competence men behind them. Now, most cons follow a very simple set of rules. The first rule is that the con artist always wins.
Scams, schemes, and scoundrels, brought to you with confidence, beginning now on A&E.
Today we live in a world filled with many kinds of media where the truth may be manipulated in very sophisticated ways. We expect sitcoms and adventure stories to be the product of someone's imagination, but the news...
Feeling tired, maybe just a little bit stressed? Well, a visiting New York therapist says he has a roaring good way to chase away those blues, and he's trying it out in East London. Vince Rogers explains.
What exactly do I do then?
Roar.
Just roar.
This reporter thinks he's getting a scoop on a new age social therapy developed in California. He's really getting scammed. The man behind this caper is New York media hoaxer Joey Skaggs. Over the past 25 years, Joey Skaggs has created dozens of fabricated news stories, all disseminated through the mainstream media. He's created hoaxes such as impoverished artists living in water towers in Manhattan and curing baldness by transplanting scalps from cadavers. He even managed to hoax the game show To Tell the Truth and invented a story that received international attention, The Fat Squad.
And the Fat Squad consists of a contract that you would take out on yourself to rub out your own fat, a 3-day minimum, $300 a day, plus expenses. And every 8 hours, a new commando is with you to make sure that you don't break your diet. And we will physically restrain you with force if necessary. Our commandos take no bribes.
Whoa, wait a minute. No, not here.
Look at those strawberries.
Oh, yeah, look at the strawberries. Come on, let's do this thing.
Martha Wilcox is taking a tough new stand on dieting. No longer alone in a world of temptations, she'll have help staying on her latest. She's hired the Fat Squad.
I sent this out to the news media. It was picked up by the Philadelphia Inquirer and the Washington Post. They totally believed it. Made the wire services. I then went on national television, and it went around the world. Japanese television, German television, Italian television, French television, CNN, they all fell for it. I use the media as a painter would use a canvas. I'm a social-political media satirist. And what I mean by that is I create plausible but non-existent realities that are staged for the media.
The television and the media environment in general is reality making. But the media and media images, because they are so riveting and persuasive and fast-paced and frequent, serve to establish a basis upon which we define our reality, our very selves, our relationship to others. And because of that, media have great authority in our lives.
Joey Skaggs is convinced that the media's authority and power are not always deserved, and he's made a career out of proving how easy it is to fool them.
I give them what they want, what they're looking for, the hook. And my work is done in a number of stages. The first stage is the hook. That's where I come up with a concept. And then I figure out how to execute that concept, how it's going to work, what I need, and I stage the event.
This is Poplar's very own pride of lions, indulging in their rather peculiar form of group therapy. And of course, they have their own Lion King by the name of Baba Wa Simba. He's flown over from New York to lead the roaring sessions.
And then I document where it goes and who does what with it. I record the process of how the media interprets what I'm doing for their own purposes, what they do with it. And thirdly, I then reveal the truth. And that gets very interesting. And then I document what the media does with the truth. Do they address it? Do they ignore it? Do they trivialize me? Do they treat me like I'm the bad guy? Or am I the person with the message?
You're a reporter engaged in your professional practice. You got all these stories going on simultaneously. You're looking for leads. You get this call. You get these apparently valid and real press releases about a news story. You follow them up. You spend a lot of time doing it. Whomp, you're off, back to the studio. I got to get the edit. It's got to be on the 6 o'clock and the 11 o'clock, and it goes on and on. And there's no time for engagement and reflection.
While Joey was developing his talent as a painter, he was also finding his role as social commentator and provocateur during the heady days of the 60s counterculture.
I constructed a life-size Vietnamese village portraying a Vietnamese nativity. I erected it in Central Park on Christmas, and I had a group of actors dressed as American soldiers attack it with fake guns to protest the war in Vietnam. And there were numerous arrests that day as well. And the New York Times covered the story and said something along the line that we were arrested for littering.
Skaggs was struck by the media's ability to reinterpret events for the public and decided to try to manipulate this power. And Roman Catholics attending the 1992 Democratic Convention in New York who didn't have time to confess had this unusual option, portafess, a portable confessional pulled by a bicycle. It was the brainchild of the Reverend Anthony Joseph, a.k.a. Joey Skaggs.
The hardest thing about that was designing the confessional booth. I had to have a tricycle custom made, and I had to get the priest outfit. Then to pedal up there and be exposed to about 15,000 journalists covering, the Democratic Convention, it was awesome. They were all over me. The journalists were all over me. I had actors posing as people coming in to confess, and then real people wanted to confess, and I had a hard time keeping them out. I said I was waiting for Ted Kennedy. You're drunk, come back again. And I found myself front page news, the Philadelphia Inquirer, CBS, Fox, CNN. Everybody jumped on the bandwagon. And finally, when they called up California, where I said I was from, as this priest, Father Anthony Joseph, the Archdiocese said, what are you kidding? We don't know this guy.
I think there's a professional pride. They don't like to feel that somebody can pull the wool over their eyes. I think they're angry because they can see the more serious side of it, that if somebody can hoax them on something that's fairly trivial, then perhaps somebody can hoax them on something much more sinister and more important.
How do you fool those whose very business it is to tell the truth? CNN, UPI, ABC, CBS. With a fax machine and some cooperative friends, Joey has scammed them all. His skill, like that of so many great confidence tricksters, is understanding the preoccupations of his own society. He knows exactly what his marks want to hear.
It's so predictable. You can make a calendar of events. You know what the media is going to be recording during the course of a year. They're going to have the homeless on Thanksgiving. They're going to be the anniversary of Chernobyl. There's always a disaster or an event. You can predict what stories they're going to cover. So you know what they're looking for. And it's really easy to tune in that way. And you can do an ironic reversal or a juxtaposition or even a statement along those lines. And you're pretty much guaranteed that that's going to push the button that they want to hear. And that's one way of getting access to them.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of
the O.J. Simpson murder trial. It was the biggest media circus of 1995, and it became the basis for an elaborate and thought-provoking media hoax. Skaggs called it the Solomon Project.
Court of the State of California, County of Los
Posing as a New York University professor named Dr. Joseph Bonuso, Skaggs sent a letter to over 3,000 judges, legislators, law enforcement officers, legal publishers, and law schools.
Now, the Solomon Project, I said, was 7 years in developing. We had over 150 scientists, artificial intelligence scientists and computer experts, lawyers and judges who were working on this project, and students. We were inputting all the laws of the land, both criminal and civil, into a series of supercomputers, and that these computers would be able to replace juries. I sent out a second press release saying that we were preparing a 15-city tour. We were soliciting cases that were controversial. We were going to retry them with a computer, and we were even going to retry O.J.
And then, beautifully, smartly, he throws in O.J. You know, and we know that CNN became O.J. TV. It became the fetish of America for a while, sadly so. And so he's got all the preconditions to carry out a hoax, which is not merely a hoax, which is a critique and ultimately an indictment.
I sent out a third press release saying that we did retry O.J. and we found him guilty. Now, that's what everyone was waiting to hear. O.J. guilty. Of course he's guilty, but now we know, look, the computer said he's guilty. So I really hit a lot of nerves with that one.
Skaggs had 24 hours to prepare for a CNN news crew intent on interviewing Dr. Joseph Bonuso. Of course, they also wanted to shoot a demonstration of the Solomon supercomputer at work.
We're on for 2. We got about 25 people there, and we designed bogus screens, O.J. guilty, and all this stuff that was only literally a screen deep. There was nothing beyond it. And we did voice stress analysis. We could analyze your voice. You were telling the truth, you were not telling the truth, you were somewhat telling the truth, you were somewhat telling a lie, and all this was rigged, just totally, totally bogus. When CNN came in, they saw all these cameras, they saw these journalists, they see all these screens, all these computers. There's hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment there. Well, it has to be real. And it's NYU Law School. Of course it's real.
The danger was that the crew might ask to see something that wasn't technically possible on the computer, or that the reporter would make inquiries at NYU Law School about their innovative professor. Neither one happened. The piece, complete with news desk intro, reporter stand-ups, O.J. file footage, and Joey's interview, was broadcast across the country on December 29, 1995. If you didn't catch it that evening, though, you're unlikely ever to see it.
A jury is a manipulated group of puppets. To do the last stage of what I did, which is to tell the truth, ultimately is the hardest thing because nobody wants to hear it. And when you try to gain access to the news media and say, listen, we're preparing a piece and showing how this was a hoax and what it's all about, we'd like to get permission to run this footage, they say no. They don't want the public to question their credibility as an investigative news source any more than they've already been questioned. I've been on some shows like a half a dozen times. I fooled CNN, I think, 5 or 6 times. Porterfest, Walk Right, Fat Squad, Bad Guys. It's always amazing to me when sometimes the same crew shows up. You know, a cameraman or a sound person from a previous hoax will show up and say, this place looks familiar. There's a guy here who was making fish condos. Oh, really? And this has happened. I've been on Live at 5 about a half a dozen times. So it's kind of frightening when you think about, how they don't remember anything. They don't care to remember. The story is more important than the truth sometimes. I don't measure my success by how many people I fool, how many newspapers or radio stations or magazines I fool, but how many people I'm able to reach with the message that we are all being fooled.
When will Skaggs strike again? On more than one occasion, he's told reporters that he's perpetrated his last hoax.
I swore that this would be the last one.
Is this the last of your hoaxes?
Oh, sure. I'm not going to do this anymore. I decided that I've had it with hoaxes. too many people have seen my face. It's going to get really difficult to do this, so I'm going to quit.
Joey Skaggs doesn't break the law, and he doesn't profit from his schemes, but to those he's duped, he's a scoundrel. As someone who makes expert use of the con artist's bag of tricks, Skaggs may make us laugh, but he also wants us to look more carefully at the truth that we're being sold.